Really appreciate your time, and thank you for hanging on at the end. I've got to give a prop to the event organizers. I've done a lot of these talks in the last year or so. Quite often the afternoon one, everyone switches off and they're ready to head back. You're either fighting the trains, because none of us really have trains nowadays with all the strikes, or you're wanting to get to a pub with your colleagues. So I completely understand it. But what they've done well is you're all here for Tim, and that's forced you to stay on and listen to me throughout the rest of the afternoon. So really appreciate you staying on for Tim and hearing what I have to say. Very quick introduction to myself, my background, my company. I'm not going to talk about the company too much. I want to talk a little bit around the problem. I've heard a lot today, users are a risk, users are a problem, but we're augmenting a lot of what we're doing with technology. And are we at the point where we can give up that control for users and just let technology run security operations, cyber defenses? Are we truly there yet? We're here today to talk about the future of cyber. Realistically, does cyber involve humans? And ultimately, I think we all can agree it does. So hopefully by the end of this, we always talk about the 99%. Hopefully by the end of this, you can start to comprehend and understand why we believe the human involvement is still critical to the 1%. And is the autonomous SOC, is the, Bob's model, algorithms, AI-only cyber defense a pipe dream, or is it realistic? Personally, I think from my perspective, it's a bit of a pipe dream. I think there's more chance of Captain America walking through and we'll go to the pub with him afterwards to have a beer. So that's just where I'm taking it from. But I think we have to recognize that Bob's models, whatever we want to call it, it's now part of our lives more than ever. It's one of the most transformative technologies that we've seen in decades. Realistically, it's solving real-world problems that we've never been able to address at speeds that we've never been able to do it. Some look at these models as the fifth industrial revolution, and realistically, we know that they are making big impacts. It's everywhere. It's starting to creep more and more from our work lives into our personal lives. I see a couple of heads nodding, so glad I'm making sense here. But we see it in our watches, monitors and helps with health. It's in your vehicles on the road. It's helping you get from point A to point B in a faster, safer manner using technology. It's also in crash detection technologies, helping you slow down when you're on cruise control in front of cars. We're seeing it in a range of applications in both our younger generations as well as the corporate lifestyle. And I always use this example. I'm trying to explain to my kids. My son often asks Alexa, who's going to win, a crocodile or a lion? And I'm trying to explain to him, she doesn't have that ability to make a verdict there. She's fed by certain data that we're inputting into this. And this goes back to the point or the question at hand, are we comfortable as humans to give up control? I think realistically, as a human, we make mistakes, but we often quite don't like being out of control, especially in the IT world. And realistically, when Fivetran released its surveys a couple of months back, we saw 86% of IT and data science engineers said they would struggle to give up fully controlled decisions based on these algorithms. And a further 90% of those professionals were still relying on processes that involved manual capability around processing data manually, around making decisions manually. And hands up, anyone driven a Tesla before? Anyone been in a vehicle when you're driving a Tesla? Yep, a couple there. So I always use this example, and I hope it makes sense to you, but would you put your kids in a Tesla and let it run around the M25 for the next 30 years? A couple of heads nodding, no, yeah. So it's the same approach when it comes to your cyber defenses. Realistically, I use the Tesla example because I experienced this driving with my uncle through Milton Keynes, a lot of straight roads and roundabouts, which is fun. But realistically, the drivers don't want to give up control. They put it in autonomous mode, and their hands are still a couple of centimeters away from it. It's just not in our nature to give up that control. And why? Billions of dollars, billions and billions of pounds and dollars have gone into this industry, into autonomous vehicles. But more and more people are taking a step back and pulling out of this because they realize, is it a pipe dream? Are we going to ever get there? Now, we're not saying, and I think it's important to point out here, security vendors A lot of our vendors, a lot of our colleagues, us included, we invest heavily in these algorithms, in Bob's models. But realistic, and we've got a team, great team in Israel, some of the smartest people that I've ever seen, our ML AI team that sit there, some of the stuff they've done goes straight over my head, but realistically, it makes big impacts to business. It's solving some of the biggest industry challenges that we've seen, augmenting tasks that security analysts just cannot do. It's helping understand and fix vulnerabilities that we'd never be able to do manually. And from our perspective, we got to ask the question, why do we not want to give up control? Is it that we're not ready? Will we be ready in 5, 10, 15 years' time? When realistically, there are many incredible applications with this technology. However, we need to recognize its limitations. It has many strengths. It can automate and augment a lot of the stuff that you need to solve your critical problems that you have as organizations and as a business. But we also have to take a step back and recognize its limitations, especially around detecting zero-day threats. Being able to detect a vulnerability at the point of instance. And I think this is where a lot of organizations, a lot of cyber professionals, a lot of companies thought it would make the biggest impact. But realistically, these models are only based on the data that we feed and put into them. So regardless how smart the algorithm is, if you put crap data in, you're going to get crap results out, unfortunately. And I just want to talk a little bit about our journey. Again, we've used a lot of these algorithms over the years. Originally started as a simulation and training company in 2014. Please don't fall asleep. That's part of what we do, but please don't fall asleep. But we realized we had to pivot into the mailbox level and start creating an algorithm to understand mailbox level anomalies, to understand the detection-based communication patterns. We then took a step further, created what we call automated forensic analysis. So conducting tasks that security analysts would do around email investigation, and did it in milliseconds to automate how we bring this intelligence and how we automate the forensic investigation for a security team. We further enhanced that by adding, what we call Themis, a virtual SOC analyst, into the decision making to drive that. But one of the key differentiators here was the crowdsourced threat hunting approach. From our perspective, we started to understand that we still needed the human decision input into our engines. We were not feeding the right data into this. And why did we do that? It was because ultimately we realized we were getting so close to the 100%. We were getting to the 99.9%, but it was that 0.01% or that 1% at an organization where we were lacking. And we took a step back to realize there are experts in organizations. There are experts that are able to make the right decisions based on communication patterns, based on phishing emails that are being targeted within the organizations. So we pulled them into the decision-making process. We said, if they're making the right decisions, why not leverage that data across the community, crowdsource the threat hunting, crowdsource the decisions that millions of eyeballs are making on emails on a daily basis, and combine that with what security analysts are doing. And ultimately, again, it goes back to why did we do this? It's about the data. We realized we needed to feed the right data into these particular models here. And we were running into problems. The SOC automation was doing a great job. It was helping, but we just did not have the right data there. And the human intelligence, or the combination of the models, the AI, whatever we want to call it nowadays, the ML, with the AI was extremely powerful. If we take a step back and ask the question, you're driving down the road, ball bounces across the road, what's the first reaction? Ball, road, does it equal kid? Anyone? Yeah, a couple of heads. Does it equal move out the way? Yeah. That's the logical judgment that the human brain can make. And that's something we're not able to teach algorithms. No matter how good the model is, if we don't have the right data to feed into this, we're really going to struggle. The speed of these models and the computational power we have can truly make an impact to detecting that vulnerability. But if we're not feeding the right data into this, we're really going to struggle when it comes to scaling and protecting organizations. And in our world, this is where we took a combination of both the technical control and the human intelligence to provide that exponential solution. To take a step back, what we realized is there was a feedback loop, but we weren't closing it. And we had to take a step back and analyze and understand, how do we close that feedback loop? How do we get the right decisions being made on emails back into this community-driven or crowdsourced approach? And that is where we brought into our strategy or our play the AI or the Bob's models and the HI approach. We kept the users in the loop. We had millions of eyeballs on mails, feeding decisions and feeding data into our community-driven approach. On top of that, we then looked and took it a step further, leveraging the decision security analysts were making, whether it is phishing, safe, spam, and combine the two. And if one customer was flagging an incident over in the United States and it hits another mailbox, regardless of how many, we were able to just practically fight that approach, fight phishing, and remove all of those emails from everyone's mailbox. Just want to sum it up here. I'm on the last slide. I want to whiz through this. I know we're all waiting to kind of get out for a coffee break and see the last most important speaker who's here today. But the key thing from our perspective and why we're talking about this, we've just seen a survey released by Osterman Research. It's taking on average 27.5 minutes for organizations to address one phishing email. That cost is 31.3 something pounds per mail. So this is a survey that's being conducted. But we looked at the statistics taken from our enterprise clients. And it comes down to two areas. It's time and efficacy. We saw that in the past, security analysts, people dealing with these problems, were spending too much time. But when we were able to combine both the human intelligence approach with the algorithms, with the models that drive and do the heavy lifting, we saw the efficacy massively increase, and on average, enterprise clients were spending less than 14 minutes on email security a week because we've combined the two together. So if there's one thing I want you to take away, let's not discount the humans in the future of cybersecurity. We're hearing a lot of buzzwords and, vendors, we've got to take accountability for this. We need to make sure that moving forward in our lives and moving forward in our strategies, we have the human at the part of our solution, because at the end of the day, we're all serving end users on a day-to-day basis. Thank you very much.